All right, we're live. How is everyone this October, Halloween month?
I'm home. I just got back from eating dinner.
Oh, cool.
Mm.
Yeah, we got Daniel and Pip so far.
Yep.
How you guys
Barbecue
doing?
pork chops, loaded mashed potatoes, if you were interested.
Sounds awesome.
And actually, no, it was barbecue ribs, not pork chops.
Ah,
Pork
okay.
chop is what I missed.
Yeah.
Is what I didn't.
Baby back ribs or spare ribs?
I'm not sure.
Because the baby back ribs seem to be all the thing, but I like spare ribs better because they've got more of a savory taste. People always say they're tough, but if you slow cook them, man, they are so tender. Which is kind of how barbecue is done in North Carolina. Here in the Piedmont, it's pork shoulder, it's and spare ribs in the mountains. But yeah, you slow cook it for like 4 or 5 hours. All right.
I'm not sure what the standard is here in the coastal zone.
Yeah. Not many people here in the chat yet. We got a Yeet from 246 TNT, but yeah, we basically have 3 kinds of barbecue here. In the mountains, it's spare ribs. In the Hey Armitage, in the Piedmont, it's pulled pork. It's called Piedmont style or Lexington style. If you ever heard of that? And then over in the East Coast, it's whole hog, and they're saying is use everything but the squeal.
Oh, so we're whole hog over here then.
Ah, okay. Yep. I mean, you have people doing that over here. Usually have a pig picking, but it's more of a standard out there. Back alley philosophy, that is either SO or filthy, so someone who can relate to being shadow banned. Yep. Yeah, I was actually looking for one of my videos a few weeks ago, and instead of just trying to troll through my channel, I was like, I'm just going to search YouTube. I'm just going to type in the title on YouTube and search for it. And I went through 3 pages of results and it wasn't there.
Yeah, I mean, I had trouble finding one of yours when searching for pretty much the exact title, so.
Yeah, that's what I was searching for. When is the UK going to Brexit? Who's it's Boris Johnson, isn't it? Who's the new MP there? And I think he's saying he's giving it to the end of October, and if there's not an agreement by the end of October, he's just going to Brexit. He's going to Brexit with or without an agreement. So hello, Rusk. Yeah, I haven't really been keeping up on it, but I figure I'll hear when it either happens or it doesn't. But it's just so funny watching British shows and the way it's presented. It basically, anytime you watch a BBC show, it's presented as the Remain side being all about the wonderful people, and then the Brexit people are just these racists who don't like them immigrants. And that's how they've. But you watch ITV or Channel 4 or something like that, and you kind of get a little more of a balanced thing. So SO or filthy, whichever one it is, says you and I both know the UK isn't going to leave the EU. Well, as far as I can tell, there have been 3 separate elections on Brexit. There was the main Brexit, where everyone said we want to leave. There was that EU minister election earlier this year, where the Brexit Party got a plurality, despite the fact that they had only been in existence for 3 weeks. And the European Central Bank basically props up their economy at this point. I'm not sure about that, since Britain's still on the pound. They don't use the euro. They have their own central bank propping up their economy basically the same way. It's not really any better, but I don't think they're really affected by the European Central Bank. Daniel, we're getting a lot of clicks from you.
Oh, sorry.
That keeps happening.
Sorry.
Yeah. But then you had, Boris, I think it's Boris Johnson. You had Boris Johnson's election. And, just like, his predecessor, I think the only reason anyone voted for them is because of Brexit. So that's 3, maybe 4 times that the British public has voted for Brexit. Yeah. But to hear the BBC talk about it, most of them are Remainers. And
If we only vote harder.
well, there was one, it was really weird. There was one of those news panel shows or something like that, and they had someone on there who was a Remainer. And they were saying, well, why shouldn't we just go with the results of the Brexit referendum? And she said, well, because this is a democracy. It's like, wait a minute. I think democracy means you're supposed to go with the referendum. You know,
yeah,
that's kind of the idea. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what happens if Boris Johnson sticks to his guns when it looks like he will, and tries to get out. You know, and who's going to fight him on it and what's going to happen. So interesting times. Interesting times. But like I said, I haven't really been keeping up on it. It's just like if someone finds out you voted Brexit, you're a horrible person. Ooh. Someone disagrees with me politically, that means they're evil.
Well, I mean, it happened here too, pretty much. I mean, did you see a lot of the lunacy in the polling locations just like as people were leaving? Back in 2016.
What do you mean?
Or like back in 2016.
So did I see what in 2016?
Like, when people were leaving polling locations, and you have these mobs out there like trying to spot Republican voters, and pretty much mob them.
Oh, yeah. I think I did see that. Will Brexit even help the Brits? They still have a lot of regulations on a nationwide level. Yeah, they do. They're still going to be a state, but at least they won't have the EU crap piled on top of it, like Article 13 or 19 or whatever number it is now.
Hello, I managed to make it this time.
Hoplu!
Hello.
Great to hear from you.
Yep.
If Brexit does happen, I'm going to start my own country and call it Brexit, because for some reason I think Brexit should become a country. Okay, that sounds cool. What's your opinion on Brexit, Hoplu?
Well, I don't know the exact details, and I have a feeling that it will never come to pass, unfortunately. But at the same time, getting rid of the Euro Union is a pretty good thing in the end, considering how bad they've gotten and are getting. So.
Yeah, I think a lot of Germans are really fed up with it, even though the German government is heavily, like pro-EU. I think the German people have had enough of it.
Yeah, the funny thing is that it's claimed to be a, quote, free trade thing, but when you actually look at that, it's, oh my gosh, no. And it's especially not a free trade thing when they basically bar most goods from America, Russia, China, etc., with a bunch of excessive tariffs.
Yep.
So, yeah. Screw the EU.
Well, and I mentioned earlier in Article 13 or 19 or whatever number it is now, and Article 11.
That is the epitome of, like, the Euro Union's bullshit.
Well, and even when they do something well-intended, like GDPR, because it's kind of nice being able to say a website, hey, erase all the information you have on me. But when it's a news site and you've done something newsworthy and you go say, hey, you have to delete all the news stories about me, that's going too far. And also considering that, and this is bad no matter what the law is, it's like, okay, you're not in Europe. Your website isn't hosted in Europe. Nothing has anything, but Europeans can browse your website because it's global. So our laws apply to you as well.
Don't get me started on all the sites that had to make asinine changes just to comply with GDPR.
Either that or just block Europe entirely.
That's what a lot of them are doing.
Oh, yeah.
Well, and also, even earlier than that, a lot of people don't know this, but Have you noticed how annoyed you've been in recent years that every single website you go to, pops up and says, "We use cookies. Please click the word accept." Why are so many of them doing it? That's an EU requirement.
Of course.
You have the EU to blame for that. Yeah, so we need you to know if you're, let people know if your website is using cookies. Okay, well, you know what other websites are using cookies? Every other one in the world.
Yeah,
It's been a part of the web for 20 years, people.
I remember old Nickelodeon PSAs about them.
Yep.
All over this tiny little piece of, that's all it says. We've put a little piece of text on your computer so we can refer back to it later. That's all a cookie is. I mean, they're not saying you have to alert people if you put a tracking cookie or something useful like that. Any cookie, you have to alert them.
Because that's just ridiculous. Like, even then, do you think that people who are going to, say, put malicious cookies or those sorts are going to really give a damn about what some law says?
Well, no, of course not. And there's no real way of enforcing it anyway.
Hearing
No.
that phrase, malicious cookies, just puts such an odd image in my head.
Well, you can't put malicious code inside a cookie because it doesn't run in the browser. The browser just stores it and hands it back to the website. So, the only malicious cookies are things like tracking cookies, like I said.
Yeah. I'm just saying theoretically.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
246, the Germans totally have enough of it. All the pro-EU parties have caused a shift to the right. Constant stagnation is normal here. I mean, Angela Merkel has been Chancellor of Germany since 2005. Yeah, I think it's probably time for a change there. They've been in power that long.
Oh, gosh. I don't understand how the woman just keeps winning elections. Yes, I hope that's gonna change soon. But yeah.
Thank you, Kitty and Kyle, for the kind words. Yeah, I don't really know anything about German elections. How they're done, how often they're done. Is the chancellor elected by the people or?
Sorry. As far as I can tell, the reason that Merkel's been in power so long is that they keep calling every other bloody candidate an Nazi. It's basically just shame Germany into re-electing the same damn person.
Do they elect the counselor, the chancellor directly, or is she appointed by the legislature or what? I'll have to read up on that.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with any of the European political systems, even though I've got a very firm grip on the American one.
Yeah. Well, and this is the genius of the American system, because we know the problems with direct democracy, directly electing the president. Our founders wanted to avoid that. But there's also a problem with the parliamentary procedure where, in our case, Congress would appoint the president. That's the whole reason for the Electoral College. So the people separately elect in equivalent numbers an Electoral College, and they appoint the president instead of Congress, and that's their one and only job. So you can choose one party for who you want in Congress, but a different party for who you want as president. So that's a much better, and that's what people don't understand about the Electoral College. That's why it's there.
I mean, people are always whining about it and crying for direct democracy.
Yeah.
The only
well, no, the people who would win under a direct democracy are the ones calling for the direct democracy.
Of course.
Which would basically mean that New York and California decide who's president. That's what it means.
Yeah. But
the only criticism of the Electoral College I've heard, which makes sense to me, is the one where, because each state doesn't have, every state doesn't have the same number of votes, you should give every state 10 votes on the Electoral College and just keep it that way.
Welcome to absolute freedom. Yeah, the problem with that is you don't want it to be too lopsided. You don't want a state with 3 people in it, having the same amount. And so that's why there's the compromise. Each state has 2 senators, no matter what, and then they have a number of representatives. Like in North Carolina, we have 13 representatives. So we would have 15 electoral votes. So each state has the number of electoral votes that they have as members in the House, plus the 2 for their Senate. So that's a compromise there. How you doing, Absolute? Okay, not hearing anything from Absolute Freedom. What we really need, this is Shane Lackey, is all 7 billion of us in one centrally controlled economic system. That'll fix all that ails us. Well, yeah, it will, because humanity will go extinct, and then...
But anyways, like what's a funny criticism I like to see of sort of the electoral college system is that, oh, it's undemocratic and it means that higher population states get less of a vote. Well, here's the thing.
Well, that's the point. Higher population states would otherwise have an unfair advantage because most of the U.S.'s population is in 2 states.
Yeah, but like
and I mean they're in heavy urban areas, these densely populated areas. They're going to have different interests than someone, living, out in rural middle America or down in Louisiana or Alabama or somewhere like that. They're going to have completely different interests that need to be represented, and if you make it lopsided like that, they won't be properly represented.
Yeah. But like the funny thing is that if the executive branch were only given the powers that it was supposed to have, the entire concept of the electoral college being, quote, undemocratic wouldn't even be a problem.
Yeah,
really,
I like the way Penn Jillette said it. The president should have so little power that it doesn't matter who he is, instead of having so much power it doesn't matter who he is.
Yeah.
DJ Arms correctly points out it was the 17th Amendment that says that senators are no longer appointed by their state. Yeah, they're now elected by direct democracy by the state, but it's still 2 per state. The smallest state and the biggest state, they all have 2 senators.
Yeah. It's just...
They're just elected now.
It's really ridiculous how the guy who is just supposed to do what Congress told him to, unless it went against the Constitution, and to just be commander-in-chief of the military while still following most of what Congress said. How this is so politicized, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, well, I mean, we've got all these Democratic candidates now saying, oh, well, we need a president who will say, Congress, you must do this, and if they don't, the president should just do it anyway. It's like,
well, I mean,
then what's the point of having Congress?
Arguably, the presidential office has become something of a cult of personality in itself.
Well, and the Senate, the 17th Amendment, that screwed up a lot of things too, because the example I always like to use is the fact that everywhere in the country the drinking age is 21, because the federal government wanted it to be 21. Now, the federal government has no power to set a drinking age, and if senators had still been appointed by the states, then the state legislators, they were opposed to it, so they would have never gotten past the Senate on it. But by making the Senate elected by direct democracy, you bypass that, and it basically made it a whole big body of oligarchs. Basically whatever big business wants, the Senate will do for them.
Yep, ain't that the way? Like, the funny thing about what you said about the Democrats in Congress is that they like to tote that they want a strong executive branch, but then here comes Citrus Man, who went to war with Congress over funding for his wall, and that's when there's suddenly a separation of powers again. Like, it's funny.
Yeah. Oh, the president can do everything. Well, we're going to build a wall. The president can't do everything.
Yep.
Whatever.
They only care about the cops. Oh, what's especially funny is just how during this attempted CIA coup, you have Nancy Pelosi saying that it's her quote-unquote constitutional duty to just... It just cracks me up whenever I think about that. Cause,
it's like, well, I'm glad you guys care about the Constitution all of a sudden. When did that start?
The funny
And
thing is, it
246
isn't even constitutional. Like,
Yeah.
none of what they're doing.
No, it's not. And 246 points out the Chancellor of Germany. The Chancellor is elected by the German federal parliament. What was that absolute? We didn't get that.
I said Nancy Pelosi wouldn't know what the Constitution was if it Count Dracula out of its case, like in those old movies back in like the early 20s, and fucking slapped her across the face.
You're gonna need to increase your volume a bit there, Absolute. You're a little quiet on us.
Yeah, how's my volume, by the way?
Yours is fine. Everyone else's is fine, I think.
All right, good.
Technically, I think there was only one Dracula movie in the 20s.
Well, Nosferatu was the 20s.
Yeah, the first, there was Dracula's death in the late, in the 10s, I think.
Yeah. Was there another Dracula movie? It seems like there was, but I can't remember it.
There was a 1931 film with Bela Lugosi.
Yeah, that was the 30s. But it seems like there might have been another one in the 20s. I don't remember. It wasn't big like Nosferatu was, but I'm thinking there was probably another.
The one you're probably thinking of is Dracula's death.
It might be. But that would be earlier. I don't know.
I don't know. I'm far too young to remember that kind of crap anyway.
Yeah. Shane Lackey, Parliament elects Chancellor. Do you want Hitler? Because that's how you got Hitler. Yeah, I knew that was the case when Hitler got into power, but I don't know if they changed that. Because I would have thought that would have been... Oh, Dracula's death was 1921, according to Kyle Wren. So thanks, yeah. But I didn't know if that was something they wanted to change after World War II to make sure that didn't happen again. So I don't know what it is now. According to 246, it's still that way. So. Well, it was like... I think Disney was talking about, making a Wizard of Oz movie, and, people on Twitter started losing their minds. Oh, how could they remake it? The original, 1939 movie was a classic. It's like, there were probably like 5 or 10 Wizard of Oz movies before that one. And that's not counting the Broadway musical, which was I think 2 years after the book came out.
Yeah.
Because it was a book originally. People don't know that. The 1939 movie is the only one they know.
Of course. I am against a lot of these remakes, though, and I see this it's one of those things where if you're against intellectual property, like me and any libertarian should be anyways, you just see everything that you'd expect to happen has been happening with the ever expansion of IP laws.
Yeah, there are the people who argue that IP leads to innovation and creativity when all we've been doing is making reboots.
What's more is that you have the stifling of creativity and sort of reinterpreting work or improving upon existing works. For example, let's say that someone is writing this really good novel, and then it just, at the end, the writer just loses his mind and doesn't know how to finish a story. IP law prevents, legally prevents that story from getting an improved ending from, say, the book's fans.
Well, a lot of people don't know this, but most of Shakespeare's plays were not original story. Hamlet, Romeo and Juliet, all of those were previous versions that had been version after version after version, and Shakespeare just did his own take on them.
Yep.
Yeah. And Zero says it best, IP laws are monopolization, so if you're a libertarian, then you should oppose IP law.
Hell yeah. What's more funny is that nothing of the history of intellectual property says that it gives you any hint that it supports or it was for the artists or whatnot. No, it was for the aristocrats.
It was for publishers. It was for publishers.
Yeah, and aristocrats to stop the flow of Enlightenment papers.
Well, that too, but I mean, the publishers wanted control over the writers.
Yeah.
And they didn't have it, and so that's why that's where the Statute of Anne came from, because they were wanting control over the writers, and then when that fell out of fashion, they started saying, "Oh, well, we're just protecting the writers." No, you're not. No, you're not.
Oh, I always love that.
Let's abolish IP laws so that way we can get a better ending to Game of
Internet protocol law is monopolization. I don't think any of them are actually laws. I think they're just they're standards that people follow.
Yeah, and another thing that's funny is how is sort of like a intellectual property for technologies and the like. How people say that we'll have no innovation without patents and like obviously like just ignore the innovation that is stifled by patent trolls and the redirection of resources for research from non-patentable technologies and discoveries to patentable technologies and discoveries. But like, if there is not even a shred of data to support that talking point, almost every study that's been done on that topic has just said no, there is no correlation whatsoever between IP law and technological development.
Yep. And it doesn't make any sense to me that you can patent software, and it makes even less sense to me that you can copyright software. Because, and I mean, fundamentally, software is math. So imagine if you come up with a mathematical equation, you say, okay, this is mine. I have a copyright on it. No one else can do this math.
Yeah.
I own 2 plus 2. You can't write it now. Have fun in kindergarten, kid.
Yeah, fanfic is a big thing because it's hated by so many, and it like there are a lot of people who are trying to make their own, Star Trek movies or whatever, and some of them are doing a really good job of it, and Paramount is just smashing them.
Of course.
Thank you, Howdy. Martin Shkreli. I don't think I know that name.
Oh, he was the guy who got the patent for, I don't remember the drug's name, but it's something you take if you have AIDS. And he jacked up the price from like a few cents or a few dollars to $700 or so.
Oh, I remember that. Yeah, it wasn't AIDS. It wasn't AIDS. It was something that yeah, there's a lot of misinformation going around about that. I forget what it was, but it's this really rare condition, and there hadn't been any new drugs made for it since like the 1950s or something like that. And so he wanted his company to develop a new treatment for it. The problem is it takes something like $1 billion in 10 years to get something past the FDA bureaucracy. And so what he did was, yes, he jacked up the price, but that was only if it was covered by insurance. If you weren't covered by insurance, you got it for free. And so the idea was that insurance would pay for this, and then that money would go towards development of a new treatment, maybe one that was more effective or whatever. I mean, would you really want to be treated with 1950s medicine? So that's what it was. But of course, the news media grabbed it and just blew it all out of proportion.
And the guy got arrested.
Well, and that's what they were like saying. Well, what about the people who aren't insured? The people who aren't insured were going to get it free.
Yep. Well.
Yeah. Yep, a monopoly on math. That's exactly what it is.
Yeah, I actually did not know that. I thought it was just a classic story of a guy monopolizing something and then price gouging the shit out.
Yeah. No, there's more to it than that. And I think you still need to up your volume some more. And Zero mentions Dragon Ball Z fan film, Dragon Ball Z Light of Hope. And I love those who have seen it. It's one of the best things about it. It's made for fans, by fans. Yeah. And before we started, Daniel and I were mentioning Eliezer Yudkowsky. He wrote an amazing Harry Potter fan fiction called Harry Potter and the Methods of Rationality. I mean, it is amazingly good.
I mean, heck, I'm working on I'm working on a large scale crossover project myself, loosely inspired by some of my favorite Ace Attorney fan video series.
Crossovers seem to be hit or miss. I mean, fanfic is hit or miss as it is, but especially crossovers, just so many of them seem to be gimmicky. And I think a lot of the problem is people are just going to do a crossover because they'll say, "Oh, I'll do a crossover," and then they try to figure out, as opposed to, "I've got this idea, and a great way to do this idea would be to do this crossover." If you get what I'm saying.
Hey, I grew up with a
Mine is sort of a response to a lot of the lazy what I see as lazy methodology is mostly just resort to just kind of plopping characters in a room or in an environment together, or using like a wormhole or something. Like
you were stuttering there for a second, Daniel, but you're fine now. But
I'm kind of trying to organically weave the component works together and see how they would logically influence each other.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, I grew up with a 620,000 word fan fiction, of which combined My Little Pony and fucking Fallout. And while I'm not into it as much anymore, I do remember really liking it back in the day. And it's I can't remember how. I think it was 1.9 million word spin-off of that. So yeah.
Yeah, Fallout Equestria really got huge.
That's what it was called, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think some like J.K. Rowling, as a lot of them have learned, to be fine with fan fiction as long as the people aren't making money off of it. I think Lucas is okay with fan fiction as well, George Lucas.
I know Rowling is also pretty cool with it.
I do actually think some people should be able to make money off it. For example, like
Oh, absolutely, yeah. But that's the way the laws are now. So
yeah. Anyways. Well, apparently there's some more drama, and Democrats confirming that they are in fact hawks now, with this fear mongering over the Kurds. How they're how apparently our tinkle dinkling into Syria, which caused hundreds of thousands of deaths, was all for Kurdistan.
Have they decided whether or not they're for or against Ukraine? They go back and forth on that.
I legitimately cracked up when I heard about that. Oh, so now he's not a puppet of the Russian government. Now he's a puppet of Russia's arch enemy.
Yep.
The country that they've hated for their entire history.
Yeah. DJ Arm said had to retract one message. Well, it's not retracted on my screen. They just come in and they stay there, so everyone can see it on the screen.
Fame may be fleeting, but the internet is forever.
Yep. Think twice before you hit enter. That's about all you can do.
But yeah. I tell you what, though. It's one of those things where you could see it happening in theory, but to actually see it happen before your eyes just makes your jaw drop. How fast the Citrus Man turned Team Blue. Not only their politicians and the like, they were always neocon hawks in the end, just with a different color. But now their brain dead supporters they're all over supporting foreign intervention into the Middle East now, just because Orange Man says he's against it. He doesn't do anything about it, but he says that he's against it, so that must mean Team Blue needs to be against it too.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Who knows? They're good guys one year, bad guys the next year. And it's like, no, we were always at war with East Asia. No, we were always at war with Eurasia. It's that kind of thing. Everyone forgets that, like, wait a minute, just a couple of years ago you were saying, for the longest time, Iran was the bad guys, and we were supporting Iraq, and Iraq was the good guys because they were going to fight Iran, and then Iraq were the bad guys, and
Oh, this rivalry with Iran, though, just failure after failure, until we inevitably just go to war and have Iraq War II, but 3 times as worse.
That's all it's going to be.
Yep. But yeah. The funny thing is that every step that we've done to quote stop Iran and their influence in the Middle East has just, like Scott Horton points us out, it just increases every time. Like, and even
Have you
then,
seen a video by Reason TV called Interventionism a Success?
oh no.
I don't think I've seen that one.
Yeah, I have a long time ago, back when
Experts believe that the Middle East is just one bomb away, one more bombing away from freedom and prosperity.
Yeah.
If we just do it one more time, it'll work this time.
Yeah, I remember watching that back when Citrus Man was lobbing missiles at Syria back in April of 2018. I can't remember. But
well, Zero says if you're a pacifist, you can't also be a Democrat or a Republican, but I shouldn't have to point that out. Both sides justify killing for the greater good. And the killing of innocents, too.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
1984, War is Peace, yep.
I like, me personally, I have this sort of a percentage that I'm going to dislike you as a person. Like a percent chance that I'm going to dislike you for having this political belief or being part of this group. Obviously, sort of like at zero, there's ANCAP's libertarians at 40 or 50%. There's like the mainstream, more authoritarian, or not authoritarian, just a sort of, oh, we need to get your guns and we need to fight the war on drugs, sort of like paleocons and
authoritarian's the right word.
Yeah, I know, but sort of paleocons and demsocs. At 90%, there's communists and fascists, but at 100%, there's neoconservatives and warmongers. I do not tolerate any warmongers. And it may sound a bit petty, but I think that you have no excuse in this day and age to be in favor of American intervention into the Sandland, or anywhere for that matter. But
yeah. Kylo Ren says the Syrian Kurdish forces claims to be libertarian. Well, libertarian socialist. Well, there's your problem.
Yeah.
But they ban journalists and engage in conscription. Of course they do. They're socialists. That's what they do.
Yep.
So why we should support them? How about neither? Yeah. Let's just stay out of it.
Like, yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing how just staying out of it has become the controversial extremist, opinion now, as opposed to dropping bombs on children.
It's because of the fact that, like, if there's sort of I'm trying to think of how to describe it. It's like deep state, their number one priority is war. For either Israel or for the military-industrial complex, or because they're a trust, whatever. That war and keeping endless war numero uno, and they're going to go at any means, including having their assets in both Team Red and Team Blue to keep it going.
Yeah, you're breaking up too. I'm trying to see if it's something on my end, but it looks like.
And here's the even more sinister part. I've been watching this other YouTuber, Devin. He goes by, he's sort of like a center lib. He goes by Short Fat Otaku.
I think I know. Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
But he talks about this in his video about the everything is political mindset. And he pretty much describes this idea that they not only keep a perpetual war in this, but they keep a perpetual endless culture war so that there's always like some internal threat that we're up against.
Yeah.
I mean, what do you think that sort of this cancel culture is about? Not only to secure powers, because obviously when you have a bunch of division and tribalism, you get the inevitable. Every tribe wants to be in power, and for the rest of the tribes to be under their boot. That's what, and that of course allows various establishment elites and the like to obtain power. But another thing that sort of this cancel culture, hype culture, drama culture generates is that it distracts from actually really bad things. Like, for example, the Jeffrey Epstein case has been knocked out of the mainstream media or social media by like Amazon fires and whatnot. And like this is something Dave Smith and the like points out that if Donald Trump nuked Yemen, but on the same day he said something transphobic, social media is going to be talking exclusively about the transphobic thing.
Oh, even if he said it like when he was 15 or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's all about grabbing attention. They've got a dying, obsolete industry, and they're just trying to keep it going no matter what.
Yep. Honestly, I'm gonna be honest. I think that if there is gonna be another social media platform, I'd hope that it would take steps to reduce or to mitigate this kind of cancel hype culture stuff.
Is Gab still going?
Unfortunately, but
yeah, JC, I'm hearing the roboting, and Daniel and Hoplu have both been doing it, so I've been wondering if it's something on my end, but I don't see any settings that are,
Yeah,
I've got a nice, good, high priority thing. I've got 200 megabits down, so I don't know.
Well,
trying to make it as high quality as I can, but yeah. Right. Let's see. The Dragon Kids has set of the lib public of Brexit in my head again. Would you stop singing where the effing Brexit is driving you? Okay, whatever. Shane Lackey, both sides also Social Security, collective bargaining for the greater good, which is forced on the home front too.
Yep.
Does that YouTuber think that things like moral panics are manufactured by the state? I don't know which YouTuber he's talking about.
I think he means the one I was talking about, Short Fat Otaku.
Oh.
I'm not sure he thinks that, but I do recommend checking him out. I posted one of his things in fail quotes a while back, but it's like one of the very few things that I really didn't like from him.
Yeah.
So have you heard about the situation with Blizzard and how they rescinded a tournament player who was support of Hong Kong. They rescinded his prize money. They banned him, etc., etc. And now, like, people are canceling their subscriptions to Blizzard to the point where they actually shut down the 4 authentications to cancel subscriptions because so many people are unsubscribing from, say, World of Warcraft, and because they're so angry. It's amazing.
Hang on, they're barring people from canceling their subscriptions, isn't that illegal?
You bet they are.
Wait, they're actually saying you're not allowed to cancel your subscription? Am I hearing that right? So is this being done at the behest of the Chinese government or what?
Pretty much, I guess.
Apparently, Tencent. Yeah, hang on. Apparently, they're doing it because Tencent owns like some percent interest in Blizzard stock or something. Tencent is a Chinese. So basically, the Chinese government. Yeah.
Yeah. And people wonder why there's so much concern about the Epic Games Store creating unfair, in the actual sense of the word, by exclusivity deals. But yeah.
Yeah, I'm getting roboting again.
Damn it.
Yeah. My guests are turning into Daleks. Oh no. Not allowed to cancel subscription, but what if you go to like your credit card company and say, "Hey, I don't want to pay these people anymore. Cut them off."
Probably like that. I'd imagine is what people are gonna do.
Definitely what I would the fuck do.
Oh yeah. But like, just to see how much things exploded. But yeah. Hey, it's what you get for supporting a totalitarian regime like the Chines. So.
Yeah, that's what you get.
Yep. And
no amount of. How would we handle the evil capitalists?
But yeah, no amount of your 50-cent soldiers are gonna save you now. Alright, so what are we talking about now? What the f*** outside?
Alright. I just exited out of Chrome, so I want to see if that works better.
Yeah. Alright, well, I actually probably have to go and wash dishes real quick.
Okay, well, it was good to have you on.
Yep, good to be back on for once.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was great having you, Hoploop.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
take care.
Talk to you all later. Bye.
And then let's see, catching up on the chat. Also, I heard some pro-Hong Kong people are trying to make some Overwatch character a symbol of democracy to get back at Blizzard. Is that actually happening? Anyone know?
Yes, actually. Oppabend did a video that touched on it fairly recently. Let me link it in the live stream text server. I will just retrieve it really quick.
All right, so Zero again. Shane, do you agree with Larkin Rose that the problem is the myth of authority and the cult of the omnipotent state, as opposed to those who say mimickers are just misguided? Yeah, I mean, that's absolutely the problem. I mean, it's a belief system, and the only thing that has to happen in order for the state not to have any power is for people to stop believing that it does. And then what are they going to do? Yeah, but you have to convince enough people of that.
Well, I mean, you've cited the cult of the omnipotent state by name several times.
Oh, yeah.
So.
I even have a video on it specifically detailing why it's a cult. And I went through, like, one of the psychology sources, I think, about all of the different aspects of a cult and how they all apply to the state. that minarchists who believe the state's authority is valid are just as much of the part of the problem as anyone else. Well, yeah, but I don't know how many of them really believe that as opposed to believing, well, there's just no other way to do it. Because those are two different things.
Whenever I ever meet someone who openly says they're a minarchist, it's like, I don't have to convince you of anything. You've already got one foot out the door.
Actually, Hawkeye made a video ages ago that basically made an argument convincing minarchists to kind of put the other foot forward.
Yeah. Yeah, look through his old videos. He's got some really good ones there. I kind of missed them. I kind of missed that he's not making them.
I think the issue with trying to get minarchists to sort of like fully step out of that door is...
Yeah, absolutely. You really need to jack your mic up. You are really quiet.
Yeah, I can't
increasing
find a setting that has me jack up my mic, so I'm just trying to talk a little bit louder.
Yeah.
You can increase his volume on Discord, I think.
Well, I can increase everyone and decrease everyone, but I can't do anyone individually.
Right-click on his name in Discord and increase the user volume.
Can I do that? Let me see. Okay. I didn't know I could do that.
Is that better?
Actually, I can because I can't. Oh, yeah, I can. Okay, because I was about to say I can't move the slider. All right, say something absolute.
Is that better?
Marginally. I checked you all the way up to 200%.
Well, I'm trying to eat my mic right now, so
yeah,
it's like almost touching my lips.
Hey Shane, how's it going?
Hey, who was that? Was that Darth?
That's Darth.
Hey Darth, how you doing?
Doing well, man.
Hi there,
That's good.
Vega.
Hello.
Is Monsieur
Alright, now
Bitcoin?
what were we talking about? Sorry, I had to go get a package at the front door.
Well, no, I was talking about how I think the issue with trying to get minarchists to try to go full anarchist is the fact that a lot of them just really don't have any like current solutions that they can name for replacement of things like a police force or whatnot. Like things that they inherently think that a state should only have responsibility of.
Actually, this was the crux of Hawkeye's argument. Like, his argument to the minarchists was, why do you think these things, these services, these things should be monopolies? And if so, why? If not,
well,
then...
it was basically, would you use force to stop anyone who's trying to make an alternative?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and I mean, if no one comes up with, another way of doing something, you just keep having the state do it. But, that's kind of my approach to things. Let people buy alternatives. Don't go after the people, making Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. Let them make the alternatives. We've already got...
Difference between a minarchist and anarchist, 6 months.
I've heard that, yeah.
Speaking on police officers, what is your guys' take on the whole thing with what's her name? Is that police officer that went into this guy's own house and shot him, thinking that she was in her own house, and only getting like 10 years?
Yeah, I don't know. I hadn't heard of that one.
No, it's like a big thing around here. Some officer named Amy something, but she essentially went home after a shift, walked into this guy's house, thought he was a burglar, and just fucking draws her gun and shoots him.
Wow.
And it's like, first of all, how the fuck does she get into the wrong place? Because one thing is,
how do you make that mistake? Yeah.
Well, it's not even that she was just in the apartment next to her or like across the hall. She was on the wrong floor.
Was she drunk?
That's what I was just thinking.
No, she had just gotten off work. She had just gotten off her shift. She was still in uniform.
Are we sure she wasn't drunk on the job?
No, she had already like clocked out.
Or they had raided some drug guy and she had sampled some of the wares.
It's entirely possible. But no, she basically, she's on the wrong floor. She's on the floor on top of her apartment, and walks into his apartment where he has like a distinct red doormat that she obviously doesn't have. Walks into his house, somehow doesn't notice, wait, this isn't my house. Sees the guy, pulls out a gun and shoots him.
Doesn't even say like, hands in the air, what are you doing in my house or anything like that. She just hauls off and shoots him.
From what I understand, yeah, she just fucking like, said freeze. He turns around and she fucking fires.
Yeah, DJ, I love the Foundation for Economic Education.
Fee.org is amazing.
Zero says it's not the state if it's not using force. That's Hawkeye's argument. If you believe that people should be allowed to attempt alternatives, then you're actually an anarchist, not a minarchist. JC wants to know where the 6-month figure came from. I think it's just a saying. I don't think it's a study or anything. George. How'd she even get the key? That's a good question. Why did her key work in someone else's apartment?
I think that his door may have just been unlocked or something like that.
That, or you might have run into a common keyed problem.
Maybe. That's happened, yeah.
But because I'm looking at it right now. She used, because it's one of those apartment complexes where they have the key card and not like a actual key lock.
Then it shouldn't have happened.
And
yeah.
Well, apparently from what she said, that she put her key in the door, but the door was already unlocked, so she thought that it was her apartment.
So the door was already unlocked. She didn't realize that, and she thought her key unlocked it.
Apparently so.
They should probably have something. They should probably have something that even if your door is unlocked, if someone attempts the wrong key, it should lock it automatically.
It really sounds to me like she was not sober when that whole thing went down.
No.
Well, I find it ironic because I've been in lots of hotels where they have the key card thing, and every single door that I've done where you put the key in, it has it rings or makes a noise letting you know that, hey, I just unlocked the door.
Yeah, it goes beep beep.
But no, even during her trial, she had the audacity to try to use the castle doctrine for walking into her not even her own house and shooting a dude. It's like, well, I was defending my. No, you weren't. You were in someone else's home. Had this been anyone else, they would have immediately been fucking tried and convicted. But no, she gets 10 years.
What was she? What was she actually convicted of? What was she actually convicted of? What crime?
Let me.
Wait,
because it was something like involuntary manslaughter. It was something like involuntary manslaughter or mistaken self-defense or something like that. 10 years is probably about right. Remember, the average murderer gets like 12.5 years in this country. So keep that in mind. (246) says she wasn't sober, probably high on a power trip from being a police officer. Yeah. That seems to be the case. It's like you keep hearing about them like getting so scared of family dogs that they're shooting, the family dogs. So, you're like, how does that happen? They need Steve Gibson's, portable dog zapper. She was charged with what?
Manslaughter. It looks like that's the only thing she was convicted of.
Yeah.
And yes, she did get hugged by the brother, but she was afterwards hugged by the judge as well.
Yeah. Whereas, as JC points out, Ross Ulbricht gets life for running a website the state didn't like. That's exactly it. Yeah.
Yeah. Or there was another story I saw where the dude shoots a police dog, not an officer, doesn't shoot at any officer or anything, shoots a police dog. It's 35.
It's what? You cut off there.
35 years for shooting.
Wow.
Not even killing, shooting a police dog.
Yeesh. I'm actually surprised they didn't gun him down for that.
Liberty and justice for all.
Rainbow Asteroid says, how late am I? We're about an hour into it. Gets 12, does 5. The figures I've seen is that the average murderer gets 12.5 years, and they serve 6 years and 3 months or something like that. they basically serve half the time. What website was he running? We're talking about Silk Road. So go to freeross.org, is it? And you can find the whole story about that. How many years for possession of marijuana? Well, it depends on how much. If it's just a little, then they got this revolving door that people just go in and out of. But if it's like at least so much, like, I don't know what the limit is, 5 ounces or whatever, to where it becomes, intent to sell, because apparently just the amount is intent. I don't know how that works. But if you have intent to sell, then I think that's the federal mandatory minimum of 20 years.
The Ross case is a perfect example of how there really is no true anonymity on the internet, even on Tor. Like, they can still get you.
Oh, yeah. Yep, they had their people in there, so. So, I mean, if you let them in and you give them the keys to the kingdom and you make them an admin, then yeah, they can figure it all out.
Yeah.
That was basically what happened. I mean, even then, it was a total kangaroo court. I mean, just read up on it. It's an outrage. It's a complete outrage.
I'd probably go to jail for being in an NCAP.
Oh. I am hearing a voice in my ear saying that my batteries are low. So apparently these things are supposed to last for 7 hours. I just charged them. So if you'll give me 1 second while I switch this out. Guess these didn't work out after all.
Now, speaking of police officers, I believe there was a Supreme Court decision shortly after the Parkland shooting in Florida.
All right, testing. I think I'm gonna have to. Yeah, let's see. I'm gonna have to switch the audio back to the speakers. All right, someone try to say something now.
Hello.
Okay. Yeah, these little things lasted about an hour and a half because I was setting up for like half an hour and then they gave out. They're supposed to last for 7 hours. Maybe I just didn't charge them enough or something.
In quotes, specifically. In quotes.
What's in quotes?
The last for 7 hours part.
Oh.
No, as I was saying, if the Supreme Court decision in regards to the officer on Parkland has any sort of bearing on it, where they essentially said that a police officer on duty has no obligation to save people or to put his or her life in danger.
Oh, there are several decisions
all that
that
shows,
say that.
Yeah. If there's any sort of thing you can take away from that, it's specifically that cops are not here to protect you.
Nope.
The protect and serve on the side of their car is specifically to protect and serve their political masters and to protect their assets, period.
JC, were those out of the box? Because those you have to try. Yeah, they were out of the box yesterday, and I put them on the charge. They were charging most of the day today, so I would have thought that would have lasted, but maybe they have to charge more. All right, let's see. Let me get back there. All you can do is increase the cost of finding out who you are. That's exactly it. You know, it's how much are they willing to put into getting you. Just like the San Bernardino iPhone, you know, they ended up paying that Israeli firm, you know, $1.5 million or something to get into it, and didn't find anything. So, you know, they made all that big deal. Let's see. Personally speaking, how do you think murder should be handled in a free society? Bob Murphy has a lot of good ideas on that. So. But I mean, it would be up to the market to develop them, but you know, there are ideas. If it was a crime of passion, not motive, I'm not sure those distinctions would mean as much in a free society. They'd be more concerned about consequences than anything else. The current penal system is unaffordable, mathematically impossible without the Federal Reserve. I mean, you might be right, and I mean, there's there's already alternatives. Just you and I usually can't take charge of it, but businesses rarely sue each other. They almost always use arbitration because it's cheaper and it won't get tied up for 3 years, while they're running up all these legal bills. So, when they do go to court, it's usually this, weird case that for whatever reason they couldn't figure out with arbitration.
Well, I wouldn't blame them for wanting to choose any alternative other than the legal courts. They're probably just going to... Legal courts just make it go as long as possible so that way they can jack up that bill as much as they can.
Yep. Thoughts on The Forgotten Depression by James Grant, on the off chance you've read it about the crash of 1921? I have not read that. Any of you read it?
No, I'm unfamiliar with it.
Yeah. I am guessing it's about, he says it's about the crash of 1921, which the government did nothing to fix it and only lasted 6 months. And at the time they were calling it the Depression. They were calling it, I think they were even calling it the Great Depression at the time. So, the book Call 911 and Die, I haven't read that one either. Warren versus DC, yeah, that's the main one people keep pointing to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I covered that in How to Argue for Gun Control. Union cops protecting union activities, I think that's a lot of it.
Yeah, we've investigated ourselves and found nothing wrong.
Yeah, amazing how I don't think they would take that from you. Like, if a cop bangs on your door, you open, it's like, we think you've got drugs here. Well, officer, we conducted an internal investigation and found no evidence of wrongdoing. Yeah, they're not going to take that.
Yeah.
Some funny things in the comments I'm not going to read out because of monetization. Although it'll probably be, all my live streams seem to be demonetized anyway. So.
Because you don't conform. You
well,
must
it's
conform
like
first.
It's like the Q&A that I uploaded on Tuesday is demonetized and manually confirmed, and it's like, someone tell me why. Someone give me a clue. Yeah.
Oh, dude, I tried to find one of your videos today, and I typed in the exact title, and it wouldn't come up, and I was so pissed, because I had to go through your playlist just to find it, and it's like, come on, what are you doing, YouTube?
Yeah, we were talking about that earlier. I was doing that myself. I was looking for one of my own videos just to grab the link to it and put it in the video info, and I thought, well, I'll just search YouTube for the title. It'll come up. 3 pages later, I didn't see it. So I don't know what's up with that. We lost somebody. I think we lost Absolute. Let's see, where are we? Crime of passion. You couldn't likely reform the person, so it seems more reasonable to keep these persons in a cage for the safety of others. Well, the question is, how are you going to do that? And what Bob Murphy came up with is this idea of basically a hotel that's used for rehabilitation of criminals. If you're a criminal and no one wants anything to do with you, and the grocery store won't let you in to buy food, no restaurants will let you come in, no one will rent housing to you or anything like that, you can go there and basically work things off and build up your reputation again. And so you go there and work for them, and you can make some money, and of course they take your living expenses out of that, as opposed to right now where they send the criminal to prison and we still pay for it. It's actually amazing how much we pay for it. We pay for it and they live like that, geez. A crime of motive, you can reform, incentivize them, everything. I don't think crime of passions work that way, actually. Special pleading, the logical fallacy on which statement is built on. Yeah, we talked about that earlier with Lark and Rose. Basically, that's a special pleading to say the state has this thing called authority, and therefore they're exempt from moral principles.
Isn't crime of passion versus crime of motive, doesn't that refer to premeditated versus not premeditated?
I think crime of passion, I mean, I'm no lawyer, don't quote me on this. I think crime of passion has to have an emotional link to it.
That seems irrelevant.
it's like if you're... if you're
the
battered,
difference between premeditated and non-premeditated is that premeditated murder, I think in the US it's called first-degree murder.
yeah,
But
yeah, and you have to you've planned it out beforehand.
You plan it out in advance and then commit the crime, whereas non-premeditated murder is basically just a spur of the moment.
Yeah, well, but there's second-degree murder, there's crime of passion, and then it goes down to manslaughter. I'm not a lawyer, I don't know all the distinctions, but yeah, so there's like, if you're a battered spouse and you're being battered and you're defending yourself and you shoot in self-defense, then that's not a crime at all because you're defending yourself. If you just kind of just have enough one day and snap and kill the guy or woman or whoever it is, yeah, just kill the person who's been battering you because you've just snapped, that's a crime of passion. So, because in order for it to be self-defense, you have to be in credible and imminent danger. So let's see. You said Las Vegas shooting, no matter the context, even if your ad money goes to helping the victims, then you're not suitable for ad. That doesn't make any sense because these same advertisers advertised on the stations that were covering the Vegas shooting ad nauseum.
So
I saw this one.
You're making the wrong assumption that demonetization has to make sense.
Yeah. I saw this one, DJ Arms. A woman was prevented from renovating her home unless she pays for $60,000 to expand her public street and add street lights. Yeah, the Institute for Justice has a video out about this. And she was just doing things like adding on another bathroom, making a bedroom bigger, building a guest room, something like that. And so the city told her, or the county or state or whoever it was, the government told her that if she wanted to do that, she had to pay to have the road widened and I think sidewalks and street lights and stuff like that. But that had nothing to do with her renovations. So let's see. Punitive justice is a total failure. Rehabilitative justice is the only way to get efficient crime fighting. What we have, I don't think is even punitive justice. I think it's just petty vengeance. Psychological torture of inmates is basically what it is. Well, and especially in the case of Julian Assange, where they have him in Supermax. They have him in this prison that's like reserved for like the absolute worst prisoners there, and he's even in the worst part of that. How you doing, Artemis?
What's up? How am I coming through?
You're coming through a bit loud, but that's okay because I know how to fix that now.
You can't silence me.
I can silence you. Actually, there's a mute button right here.
Damn it.
Someone earlier told me where it was in Discord.
Oh.
It'd be nice to have like a console with it all, but still.
Yeah.
Jimmy Kimmel still has ads on his video about the Vegas shooting. Yep. If you're one of the big guys, if you're Jimmy Kimmel or you're CNN or whoever, you can talk about it all you want and monetize all you want. You just can't do it if you're the little guy.
You say the right incantations and kiss the right boots.
Yep.
Invoke the right demon lords.
Yep. Let's see. Oh, that's okay, Absolute. Thank you for participating as long as you did. JC, the reason why Corpo Media still gets monetized for talking about things like that is because they have a magical piece of plastic from the state television licensing. Yeah, this is a problem because freedom of the press was never supposed to be exclusive. It was supposed to protect everyone. I mean, think of Thomas Paine, with his pamphlet, what's called Common Sense. That was going around all over the place. They were trying to censor that. That's the kind of thing they were thinking of. They didn't want the press to be this exclusive club. You're a press, I'm a press. Anytime we do something like that, we're a press.
This live stream right now, once it's finished, will become press because it's a video.
Yep. You could argue that while we're live streaming, it's speech, but the fact that it's archived and broadcast worldwide makes it press. Yeah. Rainbow Asteroids. I'm referencing the Casey Neistat drama around the time of the shootings. So if one of YouTube's showcase YouTubers can't get money, you have no chance to. I don't know who Casey Neistat is. And why is she paying her taxes then? Yeah, that's exactly what she said. And people are like, oh, well, we need the government to pay for the roads. But, look at what they keep doing every time someone, no, you have to pay more for the road. her renovations have nothing to do with how much traffic there is or whether or not there should be street lights.
Shane, do you think that YouTube is going to be replaced by something else that's more friendly to certain creators that are currently getting censored?
I hope so. I mean, the history of the internet is that these things never last. I mean, look at how dominant MySpace was. And so the only one I've seen so far where I think they've gotten all the elements right is bittubers.com. So I'm really hoping that takes off, but it's still in beta, so I haven't been hitting it hard and heavy. And I'm getting.
Do you have all your videos backed up somewhere else?
I think they should be backed up on BitChute.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm getting some like miscellaneous sounds from you there, Dar.
Sorry.
Yeah. And for most of them, I have a backup drive with it. Some of them got corrupted, a lot of the older ones, so I don't have those. But most of them, I can probably just go back, hit render again, and upload again. But I'm not sure which ones got corrupted and which ones didn't. So. Yeah, the Institute for Justice is very good about bringing forward cases like that and getting things changed. Zero, do you think a stateless society based on the NAP will emerge in our lifetime? Not in your lifetime, I'm thinking within 60, 70 years. I have no idea. I really don't. I mean, a few years ago, I probably would have said no, it would really take a long time. But when you look at things like Anarchapulco, when you get that many anarchists to come to a conference like that, especially where they have to like get a passport from the state and all that, and do that, and just look at how much the anarcho-capitalist movement has grown, in just the last few years. I am predicting nothing.
Crypto anarchism even earlier with all the torrent sites and all that, or Tor, I mean.
Yeah, so I'm predicting nothing. I make no predictions. I have no clue. You can go back in time during the live stream, so it's press all being streamed. Well, that's true. That's a good point. Blockchain. Have you seen what MySpace is like today? They have articles that barely get triple-digit views, some of which don't get any views. I don't think I want to know, because last time I was there, it was like full of pages with like neon colors and flashing things and animated GIFs in the background. Yeah.
I'm sorry, was that GIF or GIF?
It's GIF. It's GIF. I'm sorry, if you create something, you should get to say how it's pronounced. That's my opinion on that. And the creator says it's GIF, so it's GIF.
What's GIF short for?
Graphic interchange format.
I'm Team GIF.
Then why would it? I'm Team GIF too.
Why would it say GIF?
It's graphic, not graphic.
I respectfully disagree, Shane.
That's not any kind of rule in English. I mean, laser is short for light amplification through stimulated emission of radiation, and yet we don't pronounce it laser. Yeah.
Right, but this first letter is still a hole.
There's never been a rule in English that says you pronounce an acronym the way the letter is pronounced in the word. That's never been a rule anywhere.
English has so many rules and so many exceptions to those rules that I don't think you can really pull.
Yeah, I mean, it's just not something you can appeal to.
The way they want to, damn it.
I think the rule should be whichever sounds less like baby talk should be the word. So I'm going with GIF.
How does GIF sound like baby? Babies don't generally use the just sound. That's kind of a complex one. They're more likely to say GIF than GIF.
It sounds like a brand of peanut butter.
It is. That's what he said. Choosy developers choose GIF, GIF, because that used to be a slogan for the peanut butter. Choosy moms choose GIF or something like that.
Well, why would you go and do that? Why would you want to differentiate yourself?
Were all old websites messy with flashing lights and stuff? I'm pretty young myself. A lot of them were, like a lot of those old GeoCities websites and stuff like that. They used to have this HTML tag called Blink. Oh my god, that was horrible. I'm glad they deprecated that one.
Did you have a GeoCities, Shane?
I never had a GeoCities, no. I had one on VNet, and then after that, I think I built, a real one. And
I remember free webs.
Yeah. All transactions are a form of barter. Well, yeah. Well, yeah, but I mean, if you're talking specifically of a barter economy, barter is specifically trading something you have for something you want to use, and money isn't something you want to use except for its purchasing power to get other things. So a little bit of a distinction there. Can we all agree as English is a cluster of overlapping rules? There really aren't any rules. No one sat down and said, okay, this is the English language and it's going to work like this, or we're going to have nouns and verbs. They're just observing the way people talk in English and say, okay, what's the best way to construct an English sentence so it can be easily understood? So that's kind of what those rules are, but they're not actually in the language. They're not something fundamental.
It's not like German, because German has very particular rules on punctuation and spelling, and every single word in German, including the ones adopted from other languages, they actually deliberately change the spelling so that those rules remain consistent.
Well, and they're pronounced.
I mean, it is German.
It's a phonetic language. They're pronounced the way they're spelled, and that's not the way it is in English. Let's see. 11 and 12 are Germany words. Actually, it's elf and zwölf in German. So maybe it like derived from that, or derived from the.
I mean, we get like more than half of the days of the week are named after Nordic deities.
Yeah, except for Saturday, which is Saturn. Yeah, Sunday is the sun, Monday is the moon.
On Saturdays.
Tuesday is Tyr. Wednesday is Woden or Odin. Thursday is Thor, and Friday is Frigga.
Frigga or Freya.
Yeah, either one. They have all sorts of. How many names does Odin have? I mean, it's like a list.
Yeah. Very
it actually
few,
is a list.
Unless you count the ones from all the different dialects.
He's making a list. Checking it twice.
Because North German spelling of Odin is different from the Danish spelling of Odin, which is different from the Norwegian spelling of Odin. But within those areas, it's always consistent.
But I'm not even talking about different variants of the name Odin. I'm talking about like completely different names. I mean, look it up. Thor is the same way. There's a bunch of different names for Thor. I feel like the Web 3.0 stack will help us somewhat break the government, big centralized companies, so let's all chant blockchain. I'm not sure what you mean by Web 3.0 stacks. So when you create a language on purpose, you do not create complex rules, or it's just languages you don't. Yes, they're not intentionally created, but I mean, even like when Mark Okrand created Klingon, he ended up with a lot of funny rules just because of, you know, he was just kind of basing it off of what lines they needed at the time. And like he had decided early on that Klingon wasn't going to have a word to be. They're not going to have that verb at all. And then all of a sudden in Star Trek 6, he needs to translate to be or not to be. And I had to come up with rules for that. And there were a couple of cases where, you know, an actor said a line wrong. Yeah, where he said a line wrong, and so Okrand went back and incorporated that wrong line into the language and made exceptions for it. So you had a little bit of that.
How language works just in the real world? It's like you don't really think about these things until you actually need to describe something unknown.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's what's so nice about it. It's got all of these aspects of it that make it more like a real language than a created language like Esperanto.
I posted the list of Odin names in video form.
Now, see, essentially blockchain techs like Ethereum, IPFS, oracles, etc. I'm not that impressed with Ethereum, I have to say. IPFS is all right, but I mean, you really need a lot of connectivity for that. FNet could subvert it. I mean, FNet sounds like a good idea, but I've read through their white paper, and there's a lot of stuff that, like, they're confusing, like layer 2 and layer 7 protocols and things like that. I don't know. Isn't FNet just CJD and well, they're combining that with, I think, IPFS and mesh networks and trying to combine it all together. And the whole point of networking is those are separate abstraction layers. I mean, we're going to have to do something, because even with DNSSEC and even with the DNS over HTTP, DNS is still centralized. So, you know, if we have a good decentralized DNS, I think that's one of the last pieces. Language should be descriptive, not prescriptive. Forcing it to be used in certain is going to cause problems anyways. Yeah, like the completely artificial rules about, you know, never end a sentence with a preposition. There's no such rule in English, and yet people are just, you know, bending over backwards trying to reword sentences to, you know.
It's a holdover from Latin.
Namecoin is a decentralized unit. I had high hopes for Namecoin for a while, but they screwed up so much with it.
Also, one of the reasons English is arguably so screwy sometimes is because it's descended from two fairly disparate Indo-European languages.
Well, I mean, because it started off.
English combines words from both Germanic and Latin.
Well, it started off. It started off as kind of a Gaelic, Celtic, Norse type of thing, and then it got Germanic influences, and then it got Norman influences. So yeah, it's kind of a hodgepodge.
Which is odd, because English is primarily classed as a West Germanic language.
Yeah, but really, when you look at it, it's more Nordic than anything else.
Oh, happy Liv Erickson Day.
Hinga, ginga, ginga.
Herndy, herndy. Bork, bork, bork. Very confused what happened to Namecoin. They made the basic errors that they made initially with DNS. It is too easy to hijack names. It is too easy to fake a domain name. You know, all the things they solved 20 years ago with DNS, Namecoin has those problems. Hijacking, spoofing, all sorts of things. And I mean, the whole point of the blockchain was you weren't supposed to be able to do that, but they screwed it up. Because for a while I had bogosity.bit, and then someone took it right out from under me and I couldn't get it back, and yeah. So it's apparently very easily hacked. I mean, I applaud the attempt. I had hopes for it, but you know, gonna have to think of something else.
Oh, yeah, have you talked about 8chan coming back?
Okay, is 8chan back? Hello? Okay, 246 asks, why does Airtime need a phone number? It's a bot killer, because they don't want bots coming in. And so they just need it for that round trip, just to verify that you're not a bot. Can I skip that somehow? You can skip it by staking 2,500 tubes, which right now is $25. So you just take that and you put it in your staking wallet, and you don't need the phone number then.
Shane, do you ever do public events, conferences where like people could come up and meet you or something like that?
I used to. I can't really afford it anymore, and plus I got 2 kids graduating this year and 1 graduating the next year, so I'm kind of busy.
Okay.
I love to, though. I love to do them, but it's just not in the cards for the moment. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, just I don't understand what the problem people have with it's just a round trip phone number thing. You put in your phone number, they call you, they give you a code, and you type it in, and that's it. If you're worried about people getting your phone number, they have it. They have it. You go to T-Mobile or somewhere and get a brand new phone with a brand new phone number. The hackers have it by the time you walk out the door. There's no security there.
American and Chinese phone number.
Forget it. Forget it. No, there's no
I have to
there's
give
no
my
protecting
phone
your
number
phone
to my
number.
bank.
Yeah.
Call me when shit goes up. When give me a hopefully unlikely thing that something goes wrong, they can actually let me know. So
Yeah.
I don't get this aversion to handing out a phone number.
By the way, the $25 to stake the tube, you're not giving that to anyone. It's in a staking wallet. You still have it, and you'll get the you'll get the benefits for as long as it's there. And you can even get greater benefits by staking. I think the next one up is 25,000, then 250,000. But I've staked 2,500, and that's enough for me. We need a unisexual pronoun. I think that's one change I would make to the English language. This may sound, like wonky and, trans progressive of me and everything, but it's just ridiculous having so many different words just based on the gender. Like, I'm a widower, a woman who lost her husband is a widow. Why not just call us both widows? Why have actor and actress? Why not just say actor?
Would you like to come on a helicopter ride with me?
Using they works, but it feels weird. Yeah,
they
is
all
just...
the activists don't want that because actor refers to only men, despite the fact that plural actors, unless it's exclusively women, is unisexual.
And men. The word men refers to both genders. It actually does. It's not.
So I guess there's already a
Isn't that
unisexual
sort
pronoun.
of a kind of an artifact from the transition from Old English to Middle English?
Well, because you had, what did you have? You had woman, and then you had werman or something like that for men.
You had
some
wereman and you had wifeman.
Wereman and withman, yeah. And so withman became women, and then it's just. And so when you say that someone is your wife, you're literally saying that's your woman, because withman would mean female person, The German word of skirt is masculine. The German word for little girl, Mädchen, is neutral. You'd think that would be feminine, but it's not. It's neutral.
Weird.
I don't think it needs to unisex. The human mind will keep track of it all anyway. Yeah, men is gender neutral.
What people don't get is when they use we as or they as gender neutral for a single person. It's like, are you talking about multiple people? Oh, you're talking about this one person.
Yeah, it sounds weird, and people are saying like, oh, well, the word they, goes for singular goes all the way back to Shakespeare and stuff like that. Yeah, as a hypothetical person, when you don't know their gender, that's when you say they. But when you actually know the person you're talking about, you would say he or she. You wouldn't say they. It's crazy. You can't force these things into the language. People just have to. You have to go with the way people morph it.
So basically, what you're saying is we'll have a gender-neutral pronoun when somebody invents one that you don't have to tie your voice box into knots trying to pronounce.
Yeah. Or if everyone just starts using he for everything, but of course that's exactly what they don't want. They complain about that. All right, what do you think about transhumanism? I have to admit I'm skeptical, mostly because, first of all, the whole thing about freezing your body, which is one thing they talk about doing, that actually destroys your brain cells. I'm sorry, there's no going back from that. No amount of technology. You have to have the technology to do it properly when you freeze the person. Otherwise, and then the other thing is like, I'm going to upload my brain into a computer and live forever. Well, you're not. You're making a copy that will live forever. You'll still die because there's no continuity. So
sort of like the Star Trek teleporter thing.
Yeah, you're murdering someone and making a copy. They confirmed that pretty much when we had Thomas Riker, because you had that transporter mishap, and one Riker went up to the ship and the other Riker went back and stayed there abandoned for a while and got messed up in the head. I mean, that pretty much confirmed it. There were two Rikers. That Riker that was left behind was just going to be murdered so that the copy could go on. But if there's continuity, like if you had nanotechnology and it would slowly over time replace your brain cells with nanites, there's continuity there, so you could say that's living forever. Das Mädchen is also no. I was always told that Das is neutral. D is female, and Der is masculine.
Do you speak other languages, Shane?
not really fluently. I know some German and I know some Latin and things like that, but not unless you're talking about computer languages.
Just never ask him to do a Scottish accent.
And now, why would you be saying that, laddie?
Oh my God.
Let's see. Now thinking about it, the BitTube verification is basically a DIY version of proof of time lock.
No.
It's a proof of humanity, really, is what they're trying to do.
There's also your Italian.
I don't do Italian all that well.
Dave did.
I've tried. Yeah. Yeah, Dave was great at it. I wanted him to do the parts there in that one Atheist and Libertarian, but he didn't have a good enough camera, and so he didn't want to do it. So. Can you prove that you aren't the copy once you die? Well, yeah, I mean, because if there's no continuity, you would have to show continuity.
I mean,
because they've worked on this. Actual scientists have actually worked on this. As that, like, how would you teleport someone to say Alpha Centauri? Like you send off a automated ship to Alpha Centauri. They land on a planet there and gets all the receiving station and everything, and all the robots have set that up. Now you want to send people there so they can get there in 4 years. You want to translate them into energy, send them off as a signal, and redo it. Everything they come up with, every single way they've come up with and do it, the original person is still left behind. And the way to make it work in like Star Trek is you have to arbitrarily kill them.
I guess you could send death row inmates. It wouldn't matter.
How would you demonstrate continuity, actually?
Well, you're in the same place you left. If you suddenly appear somewhere else, you're no longer, the experience. You're the clone. But if, for example, you both entered a dark room and weren't told anything, and then when you left, you were in some other place, and you had no idea what the experiment was, then you wouldn't know what was up.
No, I mean,
well, your copy would insist that it's you, because your copy would have all of your memories and feelings and everything.
Yeah, and in effect, it would be you, right?
Well, hang on. The weird thing about continuity is that, like, even with the nanite replacement example that Shane said, even organically, your cells are dying and reproducing. So
this is the ship of Theseus.
I was 10 years ago, which is sort of strange. Like,
because you've turned over all the matter in your body is turned over in the last 10 years.
Yeah, so it's
but there's
like
continuity, so you're the same person.
So wouldn't that mean it was theoretically possible to replace these parts with and maintain continuity?
Yeah, well, like I said, with nanites, you could gradually replace your cells one at a time. Just as your body would normally replenish them, you just replace them with nanites.
But it depends on how you define a thing, though, right? I mean, like every time you close your eyes at night and every morning you wake up, are you the same person? Where do you draw the line? Every time you blink.
No, because you've had
it depends on how you measure a thing. How do you measure a thing?
You've had continuous brain activity the whole time. Neurologically, everything is still going. It's not like you stop and then you're rebooted or something.
The brain doesn't completely shut down when you sleep.
Sure, but it definitely went through a different set of modes. What if you get hit in the head with a brick and you're knocked out for a split second or a minute or an hour? You
still have neurological activity.
Right. I think it's kind of to me, it's a very gray area, because it begs the question, what is the defining factors of this continuity that we're talking about? Is it simply brain activity, or is it
I would say it's
a particular pattern of brain activity, or?
I would say it's less of a gray area and more of a gray matter.
Oh, that was good.
I'm getting behind on the chat here.
There's a chat?
Yep.
Where do I find the chat?
This is a YouTube live stream.
Yeah, you have to go to the live page.
Oh, wicked.
See it. Yeah. replace body parts with nanites like very advanced cybernetic augmentations. Exactly, just over time, the nanites, instead of you growing a new cell, the nanite would just make the copy. And
so let's turn this on its head.
If I was a copy, a perfect copy, how would you know it was me?
What if you could completely clone the experience of having all of these physical components and simply put the person into a completely perfect VR, so the duplicate consciousness is living within this other construct that it thinks it's still the physical self.
What do you mean by put the consciousness in there? You can put all the memories and everything else in there. And yes, that would then theoretically become conscious and say, oh, yes, I'm Shane Killian, but I'm still here. My self-awareness wouldn't transfer over to that. I would still perceive myself here in my body, and I would be looking at that copy
and
of me.
It's funny though, because you're using words like I and self, and so you have this built-in inherent perspective that you feel is this actual thing, but there are some arguments.
But no, it's the same way. It's the same way I feel that I'm me, but I don't feel that I'm you. Because I don't have that.
Isn't that from the dorsomedial prefrontal cortex?
That I have no idea about. I know that the concept itself is called the hard problem of consciousness.
Gonna get ready for work. See you guys.
But it would be different if, like, all of a sudden my self-awareness was somehow transferred to that computer, and I look around and go, "Oh wow, I'm in a computer! Isn't that great?"
Yeah, but what is that?
That would be my copy's experience, but there would still not be the self-awareness.
Yeah, that's always my big question. What is that, and does it actually exist?
What physical thing that?
Well, that's what we don't know. Is it even a physical thing? Is it a byproduct of consciousness?
It's not. It's a byproduct. It's emergent from your brain functions, and so it can't be separated from them, and so it can't be transferred.
So Shane, do you think a matrix could work, and would you plug yourself in?
I guess it would all depend. I mean, if you had the Matrix as, a really good society, and you could live in there and be immortal and, do everything you can do here and more so, and you were still free to, like, meet other people and form relationships and do what you want,
Be better than
I think, like, the point in the movie The Matrix, the idea was that they held them static at the year 1999 and didn't let them progress.
I'd rather be in the Matrix, than in a nursing home, I guess.
Yeah. Well, would you rather be in the Matrix or be suffering from ALS, where you're still aware but you can't move your body or something?
How do you know you're not in the Matrix right now? How do you know that this isn't a training program for some super advanced species that is a reflection of what we are?
Now,
there's an infinite number of possibilities.
Now, this is getting into solipsism here.
Isn't there like a 50% chance of that, according to Elon Musk?
That we're already in one?
Well, some theories say that there's a substantially higher percentage than that nearing infinity because if
it's not really a theory. It's just a conjecture from statistics, and the idea
Yeah, it's a statistical model.
Yeah, the idea is that if you have a universe and it's possible to simulate another universe within that universe, then it's probably going to happen more than once. And in those simulated universes, you'll have so basically you'll have more simulated universes than real universes, and so the probability is you're in a simulated universe. And there are a million problems with that we could go into.
But what's the difference between a simulated universe and a real universe functionally?
Well, I mean that's one of the issues.
Well, one depends on the other. For starters,
but
so
I mean,
you can't have a sim universe without a real universe to build it in.
But what if what if M theory is true and our universe is just part of a hyperspatial realm? Then it would depend on that. Would that mean our universe wasn't real?
Well, no, you're just defining what the universe is. You're saying, well, what if the laws of the universe are more complicated than they may be?
No. The local laws of the universe under M theory, the local laws of the universe are still the laws of the universe. This
local
is a
within
theory.
a fixed set of dimensions. So you're looking at
there's a multiverse which has 11 dimensions, and we're basically a 4-dimensional membrane in that realm. but it still has all of the same local rules and everything as our universe does.
Sure, I think all of those dimensions are important though for our experience of this particular space in
when
this
you say
universe.
membrane, I think like we're wrapped around an object, like we're wrapped around a like
no,
a
I think
sphere
it's
or
just
prism.
they usually visualize it as a floating ribbon or something like that.
Yeah, I think the whole membrane thing and the whole string thing is purely for visualization, because we think in 3 dimensions. We cannot possibly fathom with our minds this 4th and 5th and 6th dimension.
You can imagine a ribbon of 2 dimensions in a realm of 3 dimensions, and so just by way of analogy, the membrane that is our universe would be 4 dimensions in this 11-dimensional hyperspace that represents the multiverse.
Yeah, it's like the extrapolation for the flat earther
BitChute
theory.
have live streams?
What's that?
Does BitChute have live streams or some of these other alternative YouTubes?
BitTube does. I haven't done any live streams there. I don't know if BitChute does or not. A lot of people have been using DLive, but I think the only reason they're doing that is because they got PewDiePie, and I think they paid him a whole bunch of money. And there's a whole lot of unanswered questions about DLive, like how the currency is supposed to work, and is it even a real cryptocurrency, and can you be censored and things like that. So there's a lot of questions about DLive that need to be answered.
So how did we get on consciousness and all of that? This is a good one.
Oh, someone brought up transhumanism.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, we're doing that now already.
Yeah, transhumanism is sort of something that comes up every few live streams.
I'm wondering why, and I always have, like, why is libertarian transhumanism even its own thing? Like, why does that get its own designation?
I'm not exactly sure, but I know the other times we brought up transhumanism is when Esso has been in here, and he's big into that. And so we have like Zero here asking, if we build and clone humans, will they have free will? And this is going back to the principles. Your free will comes from the fact that you're a sapient being capable of making wise decisions. And so if you make a perfect enough duplicate of a human that is capable of doing that, then yeah, it would have free will and natural rights and everything like that.
Do you think if AI gets advanced enough that it will be a threat to humanity or a benefit or both, or what do you think?
I seriously doubt it'll be a threat because we're not building AI in that direction.
Actually, wouldn't it be a combination? Wouldn't it be a combination of like probabilistic behavior and wisdom?
Well, the primary factor is wisdom. That's where your rights come from. We can't simulate our whole universe because an atom can't simulate itself. Well, the idea, 246, is that our universe has a resolution. That's the Planck limit. You can only go a certain distance and a certain amount of time forward and things like that. And so the universe you simulate would be of a lesser resolution. And so its Planck distance would be longer because you'd have to simulate that. Its
or
Planck
it would
time
be smaller.
Would be longer in here. Yeah.
You can
well,
simulate.
I think it would have to be both. It would have to be both. It would have to be both a greater Planck distance and a smaller overall universe.
It would only be practical to simulate sufficient resolution that one would experience in whatever the time period.
And once you get enough nested simulations, the resolution gets low enough to where you just can't do it anymore.
Well, I don't know if you can't do it, but you'd have to run at a slower clock rate.
But I mean, there just comes a point where it's just so slow that it's not effective. So you can't go ad infinitum down there with...
well, you could have like a supercomputer orbiting a supermassive black hole at near the speed of light to dilate time, right? So then it could... wait, that's backwards. It would slow time down for them, not speed it up. Never mind.
Right. Yeah, speeding up time is something you really can't do. Burden of proof is on the... and even then it's relative. Burden of proof is on the multiverse theory. That's absolutely correct. And of course, they're coming up with all sorts of ways that the different ones might be tested once we get enough technology, but we don't have the technology to test it right now. Does the universe disappear when the perception that exists does? Nope. It still stays there. Perception, when people are talking in quantum mechanics about observation, they don't mean like humans looking around and saying, oh yes, I see the universe. They mean any interaction between particles. As long as you have interaction between particles, you still have the existence of the universe. If you ever have a particle that stops interacting with any other particles and it loses all detection with them, it has its own Big Bang and becomes its own universe.
If a tree falls in the forest.
Yes, it makes a sound. We know that.
And I'd like to make that point about AI. I think like the whole thing about AI turning evil. Has anyone else like ever noticed that the problems with AI, especially in fiction stories, is always when the AI has been pre-built with certain limitations or a certain driving goal. Like, this is a short story about an AI that's programmed to make paperclips, and so it just keeps making paperclips because nobody knows how to tell it to stop, and it eventually ends up tearing apart human beings to get to the iron in their blood to make more paperclips. Or
Well,
like
and
in war games is another excellent example. Like you built an AI whose job it is to win a Cold War, and you're now concerned that it's trying to use nuclear. It's like that's what you designed it to do.
Well, and the gray goo is another one. You know, nanites that make copies of themselves. They forget why they made the copies, so they just keep making copies of everything and turn the whole entire planet into gray goo.
And then there's evolutionary issues, like if you build a what is it? They call it a von Neumann probe. This guy came up with this concept
so it's more of an accidental thing than intentional.
Well, yeah, with evolution, right? So let's say we build this AI that goes out into the universe to study.
Shane, going back to that whole resolution issue, couldn't it be mitigated if we somehow managed to like travel outside of the boundaries of the universe?
No, you've got the light cone problem there.
Yeah.
Unless you can travel faster
the
than
universe,
light, you can't escape it.
If you can escape the universe and you're in a different place where a whole other set of rules apply.
You're in your own universe. You've got a bubble, but you can't because of the speed of light limitation, unless that's somehow violated.
Zero says PewDiePie could stream on BitTube, and that would be great for that site. Well, it would, but that's not really what they're looking to do. They want to build up instead of having, this one thing and everyone goes there and says, oh, hey, great, but then it just ends up being hype that just goes away next year. They want to really build it up, build up a good number of creators, bring in the viewers and things like that.
Don't ride a fad. It never ends well.
Yeah.
It needs its killer app.
We can't see outside of the fishbowl, prove that we're in a fishbowl. Well, I mean, this is the analogy they always come up with. Like if you're a fish in a pond, all you can see is the pond. But if a leaf drops onto the surface of the pond, it makes waves. It casts a shadow. So even in your own local realm of the pond, you can still detect the leaf, even if you can't see the leaf directly.
Or Truman bumps into the edge.
Well, they think they might have found that because according to multiverse theory, there might be another universe, and if that universe is like knocked up against stars, like two soap bubbles are knocked up together. You know how they make that little circle part where they intersect? Multiverse theory predicts that there would be kind of this region of the cosmic background radiation that's a slightly lower temperature where that other universe was up against ours, and it's there.
I'd like to think there's an Earth out there with.
I've seen interpretations that they coexist, similar to like how you could have two radio stations that can occupy the same space.
I like to think there's an Earth out there that has a bunch of ANCAPs, and maybe one day we can go visit.
Yeah. Well, that's many worlds theory, where you have all the different alternatives. That's a different thing. Science fiction confuses those two things all the time.
What is the difference between many worlds and multiverse?
Many worlds is where it's the same universe with all the same rules and everything, just every time a particle zigs one way, it creates another universe where it zags. And generally, the science fiction idea is every time you make a decision, an alternative is played out in the other universes. Multiverse theory is when you have separate universes that might even have completely different physical laws.
Yeah. Isn't the former one what underlies quantum immortality? It's based the theory that if you have a firearm that has a 50% chance of malfunctioning and not working, you put that to your helmet, keep pulling the trigger, the version of you which keeps hitting that 50% where it doesn't work has quantum immortality, whereas every other alternative ends up dying.
The thing that would have to be the reason why it would have a 50-50 chance of doing it is based on the current state of a superimposed particle. But it would have to be that where the particle would be either in one state or the other that determines whether or not the gun malfunctions. And then you put the gun up to your head and you pull the trigger and you create two universes, one where you're alive and one where you're dead.
And even that guy doesn't escape the heat death of the universe, so.
Rainbow asteroids and AGI would be in the middle. The AI wouldn't be inherently evil, but it wouldn't mind committing unethical acts because once the AI can become unstoppable. But, I mean, there's no reason why the AI wouldn't have ethics. I mean, the AI would be based on computers, which are based on logic, and we have a good set of logical ethics. I don't understand what you're asking, Zero, the distinction between one universe and anyone such that it's not just one universe. Would flat earthers still exist after the moon and or Mars gets colonized? Oh yeah, they'd exist. I mean, considering the time zones are apparently no problem for them.
What he means is if there is another universe, what makes it another universe rather than just a part of, rather than just...
No continuity with the physical laws. That's what does it, yeah. It would have its own separate Big Bang event, its own separate constants and everything. Let's see. So I can't see anything in orbit. I don't know why you would think you can't see anything in orbit, because you can. You can't see things from the perspective of orbit, from orbit. I don't know what you guys are asking there.
Are we talking about flat Earth stuff here?
Quantum computing won't really break AES 128. It'll just weaken it until it's the equivalent of AES 64. You just double your key size, use AES 256, and you're good. So many worlds will just be one universe, then yeah, many worlds is still one universe.
Did you see where Google apparently made a quantum computer, Shane?
Yeah, Google's been working on that. I think Intel's been working on that. I think the most they have right now is 53 bits.
That's a lot of bits in a short period of time. Yeah, they call it quantum supremacy or something like that.
Yeah, 53 qubits, I should say.
Last I checked, the largest calculation that a quantum computer has done is 3 times 5 equals 15.
Yeah, but it's different kinds of
I think they've
math.
actually done 21. They've actually done 21 now. But the important thing is they did it using Shor's algorithm, so it's been confirmed. It's just a matter of building a big enough one. Because the problem is getting all of those different particles in a state of superposition together before something else in the universe observes them. So you need a lot of shielding. You need liquid helium to get them really, really cool so there's no thermal noise. And I mean, these are actual physical problems that may never be overcome. Because you can't have anything else interacting with that particle before you can read it.
That's a lot of boxes and a lot of cats.
Yep. Oh, you mean where the conditions are uninhabitable because you die? Well, I guess, yeah, if you're dead, you're not observing anything. But you can have a spaceship. You can have a spacesuit. The problem is if they are only given a utility function, they will use anything to fulfill that function. It doesn't matter what it does will fulfill it. But then it's not true AI in the science fiction meaning of it, which is a generalized sapient AI. But I mean, yeah, if you make a drone that says, you know, go over and drop bombs on cities and it's capable of replenishing itself and everything, then yeah, it'll go over all the world, you know, dropping bombs on all the cities and wipe out humanity. But that's because you were stupid enough to tell it to do that.
No, or if its programming gets damaged, and that's the whole thing with the von Neumann probe. You'd have to make it sufficiently robust that its DNA, its brain, its whatever it is, doesn't get.
Or if you give it a limitation and an instruction that it cannot fulfill without breaking that limitation.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Clark.
Are there even borders between the different worlds in many worlds interpretation? Then there are. Once you get what's called decoherence, they separate and you can't interact with them. Before you get decoherence, this is where you have the cat being alive and dead at the same time. So you have that state of superposition there. You open the box, you observe the cat. At that point, you have decoherence, and you're in a universe where the cat is either alive or dead.
See, all the quantum physics is fucking weird.
Why not make a shutdown button? That was like a cartoon, long ago. There's like this one panel where the scientists are all panicking. Oh, this AI is going to destroy the world. It's threatening. It's doing all this. What are we going to do? And there's a kid there, presumably a child of one of the scientists. He just goes over and yanks out the cord. Because the AI with only utility function will do anything to stop it from shutting down. There's a whole, I think it's Leisure Yudkowsky that has the whole thing about the shutdown button.
You just pull the Spock on it and tell it that it's logic is a pretty bird that smells badly or something like that, or whatever he says in that one episode.
Yeah, and make the android smoke. Yeah.
That's the magic smoke. That's what makes AI work. If you let the magic smoke out, it stops working.
Yeah, they overheated a little too easily. I've seen people who are afraid, this is Kylo Ren, that autonomous UAVs will bomb civilians, but they seem to show no concern over the civilians who are currently being bombed by human-controlled drones. Exactly right.
America.
Yep. All right, it's 10 o'clock. We should be wrapping this up. Anyone got anything to say before we sign off for the night?
What have you been reading, Shane?
What have I been reading? Let's see.
Because apparently a lot of stuff on AI and...
Well, I'm forever reading articles on it and stuff like that, Let's see. If you're talking about books, there's a couple I'm still waiting to come out. I've got the Richard Dawkins autobiography. What was it, like A Candle in the Dark or something like that? I haven't started on that yet. I'm going through a Tom Woods book right now. It's like Ultimate Questions for Libertarians or something like that. And what else? I want to reread Smedley Butler's War as a Racket, because I remember how good that was, and I'm trying to think of a lot of stuff he said, so I want to go and reread that.
Cool, thanks.
Are you going to go through our names one at a time and say our goodbyes?
Sure. You got something to say, Darth?
I'd just like to say, Shane, I love you. Thanks for answering my questions every month at the AMA. And hopefully one day we'll have a YouTube that doesn't censor us libertarians.
Yep. Thanks for participating. Pip, you got anything to sign off with?
Nah. I don't think I have anything.
All right, Daniel, anything?
I'm good. Thanks for putting up with me. And
no problem.
If anyone wants to hear me do some bad commentary over a live stream, check out Rika X Nipa on Twitch.
Okay. And Zix, anything you want to say?
Yeah, nothing for me. Thanks is a good one, though. I definitely appreciate everything you do, and I hope you keep doing it for many moons. So thanks for that.
I love these streams. You guys are the ones who make these streams great, because I come in here just with no subject and we just talk about whatever. Thank you, Zero, for saying it's a great stream.
And yet somehow it always ends up on either transhumanism or the Civil War.
No, we actually haven't
alternative
done
history, transhumanism, and the Civil War. That would be.
Yep. All right. Well, thanks again, everyone. Until next month, stay strong,